In my last video, I showed you how to use VLOOKUP to flag or identify all the countries that have at least one city with more than 10 million people. So as long as there's one city with more than 10 million, we want all the rows for that country to have a certain flag. That solution was over here, and as you can see, India is true. China would always be true because there's cities up here with more than 10 million. So there were a few steps to this solution, but it just involved a simple VLOOKUP, a simple AND statement to produce a true or false, and then putting these two things together over here, the country name and false for the VLOOKUP. But there's even an easier way to do it with SUMPRODUCT. So what we can do, let's start off, let's scroll down, and we'll go to, where's India? There it is. So this is a good example. Here we want to see a yes or a true over here because up above there are 2 or 3 cities in India with more than 10 million, but these 2 cities don't have more than 10 million, but it still should say yes. So I wrote out the syntax right here. I just tested it a minute ago. The SUMPRODUCT will work, and I'll just kind of go through it and explain what it's doing. So the first thing we do is say we want to make sure we get the right group. So we have to look at all these countries and only get the ones from India. So I say this cell, E49, India, equals, and now I'm going to select the entire column, and the SUMPRODUCT will give us true and false every time it's the same. So it'll loop through all the way down, and for all the times it matches that it equals India. So now let's scroll back. You were right about there. That is the first, it's like a criteria, okay? All the values in here, all the rows where it's equal to India. So this would be true. There's more true at the top. The second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the population numbers are greater than 10 million. So it's basically counting how many of them are greater than 10 million. So I just type this in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, put the bracket, and go like that, F9 to lock it. So I just press enter. I put the last bracket on for me. So it's saying there are 3. So even though this city doesn't have more than 10 million, there are 3 other cities for India, for the same country, India, that have more than 10 million. So I'll just drag this down, copy it, and quickly paste it above. So obviously all of these have more than 10 million because that's the city right here. But when we go down a ways, well, we see what happens. 0. There are no cities in France with greater than 10 million. Almost. If I change this to 10 million, or let's say 12 million, then of course that's a 1, and any other city in France would have a 1. I'll just undo that. So we see, of course, India is here. USA has 2, probably LA and New York City. There's 3 for China, 1 for Pakistan. So we only wanted to see a yes. Let's not forget that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to say, and that value of the whole SUMPRODUCT, which is just a number, is greater than 0. This will evaluate to a true or a false. I'll just drag that all the way down. And let's just double check to make sure. Perfect. All these are true. None of those have any. Here is a true. And let's just do something else. We'll put a filter on here. You select the column headers, data, filter, and now I'm going to say true. So we'll see the repeating countries. Look at that. Perfect. China, Pakistan. None of these cities are more than 10 million, but the true means that somewhere above this, for the same country, they do have more than 10 million. So that's another way to do it. There are probably 2 or 3 more ways I can think of, but this is, if you can learn how to use the SUMPRODUCT, you'll save tons of time. It's so flexible. Here we're using it to count, then we put the AND statement around it just so that we don't have various numbers. We just have a true or a false. So I'll just clear this again, clear the pivot. You see all the rows. Spain does not have any cities with more than 10 million, and you'll start to see the power of SUMPRODUCT.